A child suddenly had a seizure in the middle of the night, without anyone knowing, when the dog standing next to the crib tried to bark to alert the child's parents, but the mother saw that action as a threat. She was in tears when she saw the dog's next actions and thought that a miracle had happened in this room. The barking that shattered the quiet of suburban Millburn, with its incessant warning, marked the beginning of a never-ending argument between Clara and William, newlyweds who had just welcomed a small and adorable 4-week-old baby girl named Bella. The family pit bull, Dixie, was jumping around the crib, his claws furiously scratching the wooden floor. His eyes were glued to Bella's crib. From the entrance to the nursery, Clara Reid froze in a mixture of fear and shock. She had never seen Dixie so agitated, his chest heaving, his teeth bared, and his tail raised. In that moment, her maternal instincts kicked in, whispering that Dixie's behavior was a sign of danger. She picked Bella up, holding the baby close to her chest as William rushed in, confusion etched across every line of his face. He didn't understand Dixie's recent strange behavior, especially after Bella's birth. William had rescued the pit bull years ago from an abandoned construction site. Before Dixie started acting oddly, William had complete faith in the protective nature of pit bulls. But Clara was always wary. She had grown up hearing stories about the breed's negative reputation, news reports of attacks, and neighborhood gossip. Whenever she watched Dixie play in the backyard with William, she couldn't help but feel a surge of fear and anxiety. Even as she arranged Bella's nursery with pastel wallpaper and stuffed animals, a small voice inside her wondered if it was really safe to have Dixie so close to their precious baby. Her fears only grew stronger with each passing day. After the incident with Dixie scratching at the nursery floor, Clara's eyes became acutely trained to the smallest details. One afternoon, as she prepared Bella's bottle, she spotted deep scratches on the wooden door leading into the nursery. At first, she tried to dismiss it as wear and tear from moving furniture, but the length and shape of the marks told a different story. Despite having no direct proof, Clara immediately suspected Dixie. She pictured him pawing at the door, frustrated and intense, possibly aiming his aggression at Bella. The more she thought about it, the more worried she became. She'd heard enough about pit bulls snapping under stress or responding violently to unexpected noises. Every rational part of her mind reminded her that William trusted Dixie, but her maternal instincts kept screaming a warning she couldn't ignore. Clara's concern for Bella's safety was unwavering. She confided in William that she couldn't sleep well at night, perpetually worried about Dixie's unpredictability. William tried to reassure her, insisting that Dixie had never shown signs of aggression toward people he knew. But Clara's unsettled feeling refused to disappear. Finally, she insisted on installing a baby monitor equipped with a camera in Bella's room. She wanted proof, something tangible she could hold on to, of what Dixie was doing in the nursery when they weren't watching. Despite William's reservations, he agreed. Not wanting to undermine Clara's instincts as a new mother, tension began to thicken between them like a palpable fog. Their once harmonious relationship showed its first fissures, drawn taut by concerns over Bella's safety and William's attachment to Dixie. A few nights later, they decided to review the camera footage together. Both hovered over William's laptop in the dim living room, eyes locked on the screen. Sure enough, there was Dixie padding quietly into Bella's nursery around midnight. The pit bull paused beside the crib, tilting his massive head as if listening. Bella's soft coos were audible over the monitor's mic. Then Dixie took a step closer, sniffed around the crib's base, and lay down as though standing guard. The sight wasn't outright terrifying, but Clara's heart pounded. To her, Dixie's presence near Bella, especially at night, was a breach of an invisible boundary. No matter how gentle the dog seemed in the footage, her anxiety only deepened. She was convinced that in one moment of unpredictability, everything could go horribly wrong. After repeated late-night viewings, Clara's fear crystallized into a drastic decision. Dixie needed to leave their home, She insisted that William find a new place for him, somewhere he could be safe, but far from Bella. William fought to reason with her, reminding Clara of Dixie's unwavering loyalty. He argued that there was not a single moment of obvious aggression in the footage. If anything, Dixie seemed more curious than threatening. Yet he couldn't deny Clara's maternal fears, nor the scratch marks that still marred the nursery door. Torn between his wife's pleas and his deep affection for Dixie, William finally, albeit reluctantly, agreed to look for another home for the pit bull. The air in the house grew tense, each conversation like walking through a minefield, where any word might trigger an emotional explosion. In the midst of this heartbreaking decision, William found himself lost in memories. He recalled his early 20s, a time of personal struggle when he felt directionless. Back then, he stumbled upon Dixie in a deserted construction lot near his old apartment. The poor dog was skinny, trembling, and limping from an injured paw. Somehow, William recognized a reflection of his own loneliness in the pit bull's fearful eyes. He nursed Dixie back to health, spent long nights comforting him, and discovered in the dog a profound capacity for love. Dixie became William's confidant, the one who listened to his midnight ramblings, the one who never judged. Reminded of those days, William felt a wave of guilt and sadness. He knew the fear in Clara's eyes was real, but so was the bond he shared with Dixie. Clara, too, was torn. She couldn't entirely ignore the gentle moments she had witnessed. Just days before, she had seen Dixie quietly approach Bella's playmat, lie down beside it, and rest his head on his paws as if he wanted to be near her. Another time, she had caught him nosing Bella's blanket, gently nudging it closer as if trying to tuck her in. Despite these tender glimpses, Clara couldn't erase the barrage of horror stories she had been fed throughout her life. Pit bulls, according to every sensational headline she'd heard, were ticking time bombs. The guilt weighed on her heavily because she saw William's pain at the possibility of losing Dixie. But as a mother, her responsibility to protect Bella came first. In the days that followed, the tension in the house rose to an almost unbearable level. Dixie, oblivious to the turmoil, continued his nightly routine of trotting into Bella's room, circling the crib, and lying down near her. Clara interpreted this as a potential threat, her heartbeat quickening each time she reviewed the footage of his looming figure in the dark. William, however, saw only an ever-devoted guardian, wanting to ensure Bella's well-being. The contrast in their interpretations created a chasm. Clara was certain the scratch marks on the nursery door had been Dixie's doing, though William proposed it could have been a piece of furniture scraping during the move. Every day they drifted further apart, each standing firm on their own side of the pit bull debate. They found themselves arguing over even the smallest occurrences. One morning, Bella cried while resting on her tummy, an exercise recommended by the pediatrician. Dixie dashed in from the hallway, nails clacking on the wooden floor, and hovered protectively by her side. Clara rushed forward, scooping Bella up again, while William stood by, frustrated that she kept assuming the worst. Words flew back and forth. He's just trying to help. He could snap at any moment. The tension was so thick it weighed down the atmosphere, sapping the warmth out of the once happy household. In the back of her mind, Clara wondered how long they could endure this struggle. Do you think it's normal for a mother, Clara, to be worried? If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe. It's very important to us, thank you. Their marriage, once built on shared hopes and affectionate banter, began to buckle under the strain. Clara felt her love for William was being tested by his unwavering faith in Dixie. Meanwhile, William grew resentful of her refusal to see beyond the breed's negative stigma. The heated conversations turned into nights spent sleeping in separate rooms. Even mundane chores like washing dishes or folding laundry became accompanied by heavy silence or hushed disputes. Clara found herself scouring the internet for pit bull statistics, trying to validate her fears. William, on the other hand, reached out to dog trainers and vets, reading studies that highlighted the breed's capacity for affection and loyalty. Their differences only crystallized further, turning love into a battlefield of mistrust. Each time Dixie displayed any sign of protectiveness, like a low rumble in his throat when a door slammed or a purposeful stance if a stranger approached, Clara's heart thundered with alarm. She pictured worst-case scenarios, nights of shattered peace, and the possibility of a tragedy. William tried to explain that this vigilance was exactly what made Dixie a good guardian. He was merely responding to perceived threats, not turning aggressive toward their family. But Clara's fears were like a broken record, repeating over and over. What if he snaps even once? She felt trapped in a loop of anxiety, second-guessing every bark and growl. But she didn't know that a miracle was about to happen in this room. Late one evening, Bella developed a sudden fever. Clara pressed her palm to her daughter's forehead and recoiled at the heat radiating from the baby's skin. In a panic, she called out to William, who rushed for the thermometer. Bella's temperature was alarmingly high, and her tiny body felt limp. Clara's heart clenched. She knew she had to get Bella to a doctor as soon as possible. While William wrapped Bella in a soft blanket, Dixie appeared at the nursery door, whining softly. Clara, consumed by her worry, was initially annoyed at the dog for blocking the way. But then Dixie let out a series of sharp, anxious barks that sounded nothing like his usual protective growl. Something about it felt urgent, almost like a plea for them to hurry. In the chaos of rushing Bella to the emergency room, Clara barely registered Dixie's frantic state. But William, whose protective instincts extended to both Bella and Dixie, decided to check the baby monitor footage later that night while Bella was undergoing tests. What he found stunned him. The camera showed that before Bella's feverish cries even woke Clara, Dixie had been pacing relentlessly in the nursery. His ears were pinned back, and he barked in short, sharp bursts, as though trying to rouse someone's attention. At one point, he jumped on the crib's railing, an action he'd never done before, clearly distressed by Bella's condition. William called Clara over to watch, and for the first time, she saw Dixie's posture not as aggression, but as deep concern. Clara felt a painful twist in her gut as she replayed the footage. Every bark, every frantic gesture, was a desperate attempt by Dixie to signal something was wrong with Bella. The low rumbles she had previously interpreted as menacing were now undeniably warnings. It dawned on her that Dixie might have sensed Bella's distress far earlier than they did. She saw how he had tried to scratch at the nursery door. Likely, the same marks she'd believed were a sign of aggression. That realization cut through her heart like a blade. Her eyes brimmed with tears, and she felt an overwhelming sense of regret. Doctors soon confirmed that Bella had a dangerous respiratory infection. Had they not acted quickly, the situation might have spiraled into a dire emergency. Clara couldn't escape the truth. Dixie had effectively saved Bella's life. If the dog hadn't barked so persistently, rousing them from half-sleep, they might not have rushed Bella to the hospital in time. The weight of this revelation left Clara reeling. She had spent weeks demonizing Dixie, seeing every move he made as a threat. In reality, it had been his protective instincts, and perhaps some canine intuition, that alerted them to their daughter's peril. When they returned home with Bella, still weak but on the mend, Clara found Dixie waiting at the door. The pit bull gazed up at Bella with dark, worried eyes, as though making sure she was truly okay. Clara hesitated, an apology catching in her throat. She knelt down, carefully shifting Bella to one arm and hesitantly extending the other toward Dixie. For a moment, she feared he might recoil or shy away, hurt by her coldness over the past few weeks. Instead, Dixie pressed his head into her hand, his eyes closing in gentle acceptance. Clara's voice shook with emotion as she whispered, "I'm sorry, boy. And thank you. Over the following days, Clara felt a renewed sense of purpose. She realized that knowledge, rather than assumptions, was the key to overcoming her fears. She contacted a reputable dog trainer in Maplewood who specialized in pit bulls. At first, Clara was apprehensive, waiting for Dixie to do something suspicious. But as the sessions progressed, she learned about canine body language, the difference between protective warning signals and aggression, and the breed's unwavering loyalty when properly cared for. Slowly, her old fears started to dissipate, replaced by a fascination with Dixie's gentle spirit and the intricacies of his behavior. As the months passed, Bella grew from a fragile infant into a bright, curious toddler. In a poignant twist, Dixie and Bella formed an unbreakable bond. Each morning, Bella toddled around the living room, squealing with delight when Dixie followed her. During nap time, Dixie would curl up on the floor by Bella's bed, ears perked in watchful vigil. And whenever Bella giggled, Dixie's tail wagged as though fueled by her laughter alone. The love between them was so pure and instinctive that it often brought tears to Clara's eyes. She found herself watching them together, marveling at how she had once wanted to separate them forever. Seeing how Bella thrived with Dixie by her side, Clara felt compelled to share their story. She remembered how her own misconceptions nearly drove a wedge into the heart of their family. Determined to fight against the stereotypes that had clouded her judgment, she wrote a personal essay for a local magazine. In it, she recounted the harrowing night of Bella's fever, the pivotal video footage, and the deep regret she felt for misjudging Dixie's actions. Her words carried a simple yet powerful message. Pit bulls, like any other dogs, are shaped by their environment, training, and the love or lack thereof they receive. Through this candid storytelling, she hoped to help dismantle the prejudice that labeled pit bulls as inherently dangerous. Beyond sharing their experience in writing, the Reids also took an active approach in the Maplewood community. They organized small gatherings at the local dog park, inviting neighbors to meet Dixie. Children were encouraged to interact with him under controlled conditions, petting his soft fur and feeding him treats. Parents who once watched from afar with wary stares slowly realized that Dixie was not a snarling menace, but a devoted family member. William spoke passionately about second chances, not just for dogs labeled as dangerous, but for people who carry fears based on incomplete information. More and more, Dixie became a local ambassador for pit bulls, displaying a gentle patience that proved love could indeed silence fear. Meanwhile, Clara continued working with the dog trainer, delving deeper into canine psychology. Her initial goal had been simply to manage Dixie's presence around Bella, but it evolved into a mission to understand and celebrate what made Dixie special. She practiced advanced commands with him, teaching him to fetch Bella's pacifier or blanket on command. Each successful lesson felt like a triumph that bridged the gap between her old anxieties and the bright future she now imagined. Where there had once been a threshold of dread near Bella's nursery, there was now a place of trust, stoked by countless positive interactions. Sometimes, late at night, Clara would reflect on how far they had come. In just a few months, she'd transitioned from seeing Dixie as an unpredictable threat to recognizing him as an indispensable part of their family. She recalled how the scratch marks on the nursery door had been his urgent attempts to warn them about Bella's distress. She smiled at how ironically those same scratches remained there, but they no longer symbolized danger. They stood as silent testimony to Dixie's loyalty. Looking at Bella asleep in her crib and Dixie curled protectively nearby, Clara realized how fear can distort reality and how love can set it right again. William, too, found renewed joy in their home. His relationship with Clara rebounded stronger, with both acknowledging the mistakes they'd made. Their late-night talks, once fraught with tension, transformed into a time to share feelings and work through misunderstandings. They confided in each other about the fears that had overshadowed them, laying bare their vulnerabilities. Through honesty and compassion, they rediscovered the thread that bound them: family. And in that family, Dixie was no longer a point of contention, but a unifying force, a symbol of resilience and devotion. As Bella continued to blossom, learning to crawl and eventually walk, Dixie remained her faithful shadow. He would position himself protectively by the stairs, bark excitedly when she managed a new milestone, and whine softly whenever she cried. Clara often took photographs of the two of them together, Bella with her tiny hands burying themselves in Dixie's fur, or Dixie rolling over to let Bella pat his belly. These heartwarming snapshots showed a mutual adoration that spoke louder than any fear-mongering headline. The pit bull who once sparked dread in Clara's mind now filled her heart with gratitude. In time, Bella celebrated her first birthday. Friends and neighbors gathered in the backyard for a small party, balloons bobbing gently in the summer breeze. Dixie was at the center of it all, happily wagging his tail as he watched the children run around. Even the guests, who were once wary of pit bulls, found themselves smiling at Dixie's friendly demeanor. Clara, wearing a bright floral dress, felt a surge of pride. Just a few months ago, she would have been on edge, nerves stretched thin at the sight of Dixie near so many kids. Now she embraced the moment without fear, knowing her family was safe. The Reid story soon spread beyond Maplewood. Neighbors mentioned it to friends in neighboring towns, and local publications ran features on pit bulls as family dogs. Clara found her inbox filling with messages, some from mothers who shared similar fears, others from dog lovers praising her for her honesty. She responded to each letter or email with empathy, acknowledging that fear was natural, but reminding them that fear alone shouldn't be the deciding factor. If there was one lesson she hoped people would carry away, it was that an open mind and a willingness to learn could change lives, for both people and pets. Finally, as time marched on and Bella grew into a spirited toddler, Dixie remained her devoted companion. In turn, the Reid household found its balance. Where once there had been an invisible wall built by mistrust, now there was a sense of unity. William and Clara's love, Bella's laughter, and Dixie's steadfast watchfulness. The family often spent afternoons lounging on the living room rug, Bella crawling around with squeaky toys while Dixie gently nudged them her way. Clara would look over at William and smile, reminded of how close they had come to losing this precious dynamic. As a final act of gratitude, Clara penned a heartfelt piece titled, "A Pit Bull Named Dixie, Our Family's Journey Beyond Fear." She described in detail how Dixie had once been on the brink of being rehomed, how he had ultimately saved Bella's life, and how her own transformation from fear to advocacy took root. She ended with a message of hope, that every dog, regardless of breed, deserves the chance to be understood for who they truly are. The story resonated widely, and the Reids became a small but influential voice in the ongoing conversation about pit bulls and prejudice. On a breezy autumn afternoon, a photographer from the local paper visited their home to capture a family portrait. William stood with one arm around Clara, who cradled Bella in her embrace. Next to them, Dixie sat proudly, ears alert and tail thumping the grass. The camera's shutter clicked, freezing the moment of hard-won harmony. In that single frame was the essence of their story. Fear overcome by love, misconceptions dissolved by truth, and a pit bull who would forever be a cherished member of the Reid family. If you were Clara, would you let the dog near your newborn baby? If you were William, how would you explain to your wife that dogs tend to be protective? What city are you listening in? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and like before continuing with the next story on the channel.